Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Roswell, New Mexico. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, Liz and the team basically take Maria from signing her out of the hospital just because they need to make sure they get on top of, whatever treatment they can, do to help Maria with this whole Jones situation, separating them. But also it's it's going to, a lot of questions are going to be answered the moment the handprint kind of spreads, because basically it's going to start shutting down all her bodily function so that her body isn't literally strong enough, so that basically makes it easier for Jones to kind of hijack and take control of her. So they were able to make that happen. Which at the same time, inside her mind, Maria is fighting off Jones, because he ends up talking about the fact is that Patricia met a very specific alien on March 11, 1969, and he needs access to an equation. It's the final piece to something he needs, and at the time we're not knowing what it was. So, but Maria won't help him, because basically she would have to follow Patricia's memory. Because at first, even she was I don't have that memory, but I guess because of their powers and everything, and I guess because I think maybe on some scientific level there is some aspect of that, there is some ancestral DNA memory. There is some sort of memory in your DNA like that. But I guess in their case, like I said, I could be talking straight out of my ass, but I feel like that's an actual thing, but I could be wrong. Not to the extent of you can relive your ancestors' memory, but it's in a scientific standard, there is kind of memory in the DNA of your ancestors and stuff like that on some genetic level, I think. But in her case, it's more literal, because it's because of their circumstances. I mean, I think the alien side of things makes it so that, because it's passed down throughout the generations, so basically she has access to technically every memory. Granted, it's locating that probably will be a lot harder without Jones pinpointing her in the right direction where to look. She would need someone to point, she, as they say later on, it's trying to Google search something. It's trying to search for something without a search engine. So it's there's a whole bunch of there's 4 generations of memories to sift through. So, but luckily Rosa and Isabel end up going inside of Maria's memories to help her out. So figuring out we got to stop him because he's after this very specific memory. It's related to Caulfield, but that would mean essentially Maria would have to follow Patricia's memories if they want to find out what it is that Jones is after, because if they can find it and get to it beforehand, maybe they can stop him, and it might be the means of helping them with this whole Max situation as well. But it would mean reliving everything at Caulfield, which it wasn't just about the alien experimentation, but on minorities as well. So, and so I thought it was interesting when they show up too. It's Rosa's oh wait, someone's coming, but it's no, Isabel makes the A Christmas Carol reference, which I love Rosa being do you think I actually read that my sophomore year? And then you had Maria make a reference. It's a Dumbledore reference. So I was oh, it's funny because I actually got the, I guess that just shows you the differences. But plus I'm also technically older than Rosa, so it makes sense. But in the sense that I actually got the other reference, because I'm not well versed in Harry Potter, so I didn't really understand the Dumbledore reference. Did she say Christmas Story or Christmas Carol? I'm assuming she's talking about Christmas Carol, because that's the whole thing about kind of reliving the past and stuff like that. No one can see. I think that's what she was referencing. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was referencing a Christmas. I think she said a Christmas Carol. I think that's it. The Dickinson story, but regardless, but it's the thing of we're kind of just observers, except for Maria, because to everyone in their memory, Maria looks like Patricia. So, and they try to go right, so we'll go this way because it's oh, it's restricted, but it's right, they're restricted to what they can do. They can only experience what Patricia experienced. So they basically, to get to the answers of what this is all about, they have to follow her day through. And it turns out it actually kind of shakes Maria, because she thought Patricia was a victim in all this, but it seems like she was an assailant, in the sense that she was the one administering the shots and stuff like that, which I was damn, that's gotta suck. I was oh, I mean, especially because Michael recently went through all his shaking thoughts about like, right, maybe my mom wasn't who I thought she was. I kind of put her on this pedestal of like she was this great person, but now that we know like Jones is Jones, that he's the dictator, it's like, oh no, like your mom was on the right side of things entirely. Like, Jones tried to make himself seem like an innocent, victim in certain regardless. But it turns out Patricia wasn't the bad guy. She was actually helping like switch out the doses with placebo. So it's like, okay, good. So it's like, right, that kind of strikes out that concern in that regard. But that was, it was kind of, and Isabel saying like, right, like they have to live through that before they end up finding out like the truth about it. Like when they thought that Patricia was still helping and stuff like that, in the regard of like helping with the experiments. And it actually led to an interesting conversation because, like, Rosa has a very zen perspective on things. And obviously it's like going to those meetings and stuff like that has really kind of helped her. But, because there's a whole conversation about, like, Isabel would rather her, like, run. Because it's like, right, we might be just, like, playing right into Jones's hands. But, Rosa's all about, like, no, if Maria wanted to run, I would have been down for it, but I'm glad she's standing and fighting because I think it's just facing your demons you're facing your monsters is a lot harder a lot of times, but like it is a necessary part of like, and she's like, I think with her own circumstances, seeing Maria willing to face something that's not too pretty, that's pretty ugly, this monstrous situation, that I think that kind of inspired her to be like, I think it led to some inspiration on her part as well, so. Because basically each one of them's kind of got, as I think Isabel kind of phrased it, kind of like their own dragon. Because in Rosa's case, it's like she wanted to help out at the beginning, but Liz was all like against it. But it's like, right, like she's like, no matter what I do, I always, like, I even feel it myself that I'm kind of the screw up. It's like Liz is the smart one and always does everything right. Like me, I'm always the screw up. But then, like, even Isabel says, like, right, that's not your hurdle to get over. That's Liz's, because that's her perspective. Like, all you can do is just continue being you, and, you're not that same person. And it's up to Liz to kind of start recognizing that, which she eventually does. But for Isabel, like, Rosa was saying that, this mindscape thing is your business. Like, this is your realm way before it was Jones. So kind of don't let him dictate your path for you, because I think because of conversations, he's kind of gotten in her head a little bit more of like, right, like she's still kind of like not as well versed in this as he is, but it's still like, nah, this is your realm, like you kind of run things here, so don't let like Jones dictate like what path you go down, and like let what he said kind of get in your head type of situation. But we did have Patricia and Nora meet, and I thought it was so sweet where Nora was like, right, you look so much, I could see so much of Luis in you. But they have a conversation, and it turns out there's an alien there named Theo. He's the one that Patricia ends up meeting, the one that Jones is so interested in. It turns out it was he's part of the triad, and like part of her triad. I wonder, is that supposed to be just like, is that the name of their resistance group, or is that just supposed to be is that kind of like the different cells and stuff like that, or is that certain grouping? I don't think that term was ever used like that in that regard of like learning about Oasis and stuff like that. I don't think that ever came up, but maybe that triad included like her, Luis, and Theo. Like we were kind of a squad. And so it turns out the moment they mentioned he was like cloning, like that Theo's whole purpose was clones and stuff like that, and kind of made it seem like, oh yeah, like he did it for the dictator. I was like, wait, he cloned himself? Like, so Max isn't the first clone. I was like, Max is the first non-commissioned clones, because he's always the one commissioning the clones, but Luis and Nora took his DNA and worked with Theo to make a clone. They don't go into the specifics, but there were some, like, they were like, yeah, there's some issues with Max, which Maria tried to ask about it, but it's like, she can't. Like, that conversation never happened between Patricia and Nora, so no getting help on that front. But the moment they brought that up, I was like, wait, he has other clones? I was like, wait, is that how he's been surviving this entire time? Because he's not actually immortal? And it's like, yeah, they end up explaining that later on. It's like, yeah, he's been jumping from different clone body to different clone body this entire time. And it turns out Theo, Nora, and Luis ended up destroying all of his research. And all that, because Theo's the only one who knew, like, all the pieces to the puzzle of understanding like how to do the cloning process, but he destroyed all his research. So that's what this is all about for him. It's like he needed the final piece to the puzzle, and Theo's the one who had it. So that definitely puts things in perspective, because like there was a piece of glass that was like the final piece to the machine that Nora was building, and it turns out that it's going to end up basically being a telephone for them to call backup. And it's like, okay. But what was interesting though is that Nora was like, it's so much more than that. And I'm like, what does that mean? I can see definitely why that would also be a bad thing in certain regards too. Because the way the war has fought on their planet, they probably don't know the results of that. But also, it's like probably not good if like Jones, because it's like, right, Jones, we've got him locked up for now, but that won't. I think she was worried that like if he got access to this and he calls that planet, like he's the leader, like everyone's going to fall in line. His like subordinates or whatever, like people will fall in line, and he'll probably summon the worst of the worst, the people that sided with him, and so that probably spell doom for Earth. Is kind of what it seemed like she was kind of getting at. But sadly, by the time Maria and Isabel, Patricia got there, like Theo was already dead. So it's like, well, that doesn't work. But the glass is also like, there's nothing on it. It usually reacts to like their touch or whatever, like kind of, and it's like, but then Isabel kind of got an idea, like the glass is like more like a thumb drive. So they saw the symbol on Theo's head and they put it up there. So like everything in his mind got transferred onto that glass. But Jones is like them. He can't do whatever he wants to in the mindscape. So he needed. He knew that if he told Maria how important this was to him, that her being a good-natured person she is, she'd go down this path just so she'd have the ammunition necessary to go against him. So it's like, right, I just knew I just had to follow you down the rabbit hole type of situation. But Isabel fights him off, and I do like, because it is a mindscape, we are like bouncing to like other memories in like her mind. Like they end up at the restaurant in her mind, because once again, this is Isabel's wheelhouse, so she has a lot more control. To be fair, she was also just buying time. Granted, he wasn't able to get a look at it fully, but I doubt he got the full breakdown of what's on that glass, but he was staring at it enough to probably he's probably going to memorize some of that. So he's got some of the key, and it might be one of those things where, what's that? It's that video game. I'm trying to think of it. It's basically like when you have like a certain numbers of a combination, and it's like, right, you're missing like the last two digits. So it's like, right, I got to figure it out. It's like, okay, I know the first three are like 844. Let me try out like all the different combinations for like the last. It's kind of that, like he'll probably have to fill in the blanks like from what he got. It's like, right, knowing what he knows is like, all right, so it could be this, it could be that. Like he'll probably try out all the possibilities. Granted, we do know where the glass is now, because the glass got put in what is now the Lockhart machine. It was like, now that's fascinating how that ties back into obviously everything with Deep Sky, and that being the project that Alex has been working on. So, and speaking of, two other sides to this story is, first and foremost, you have Liz on the outside trying to figure this out. Like, you know, it's like, right, it's up to me, because for one, my best friend's also going to die, like, if I don't take care of this, but with them inside of Maria's mind, they'll also die too. Like, the three women in my life that I love, like, they will die if I don't do this, so the pressure is on. But I even thought that was interesting, because Liz starts kind of getting pissed at herself, because she's like, right, like, I've always kind of thought, like, she's always thought, like, her being the smartest person in the room would always kind of carry her, but under these circumstances, it's like, it doesn't matter, like, I can't figure out what to do, because any attempts to kind of, like, she's trying all these different solutions to separate Jones and Maria Sales, and just when she thought she had a solution, it's like, nope, they bound back together and even started multiplying, so it's like, right, I can't do this, and she kind of gave up. But she stumbled across an idea. What about sound? Because she didn't remember what Rosa had said about, like, right, the frequencies and stuff like that. And that in itself is actually what changed things in her mind of, like, right, I should have listened to Rosa. And Rosa hearing things from the outside came out. And it actually helps, because Rosa has her power that allows her to hear the different frequencies. She's able to tell Liz exactly what frequency will basically destroy Jones's cells without destroying Maria's. essentially, as like the analogy they use, like an opera singer using their voice to shatter glass type of thing. So I thought that was such a fascinating element to it all. And with the turquoise stone that boosts their powers, it made it so that Rosa could end up pinpointing it exactly. So that's where things kind of get taken on that front. But on the other side of things, we had Michael and Alex trying to track down Jones, or trying to get back, Jones's body that's in the pod and everything. So obviously Alex wants to come along because he doesn't want Michael doing anything reckless or crazy or stupid. And it's like, he also has to drop the information, like, right, I'm part of Deep Sky. It's like, you mean the thing that did what, like, the evil organization that, like, Cam's sister was a part of it? It's like, no. Like, it was never like an evil organization. My dad just assumed that it was. So it's like, at the end of the day, he admits, like, right, I decided to join Deep Sky for your sake. It's like, you might want to, like, live in the world believing, like, it's safe, but he's like, no, I'm actually going to make it safe for you. Like, he wants to know everything he can know so he can properly be prepared to look after Michael, because, regardless of everything, he's always cared about Michael and continues. Michael ends up being the focal point of why he does a lot of what he does. So they're concocting their plan and everything. Michael's still under the impression, like, he wants to take the sword. It's like, we have this opportunity, so why not take it? I am literally the only other person here that can grab the sword anyway. But Alex is saying, let's just get the pod. That should be the main focus of the mission, because, right, no emotions or anything put into this. We need to kind of handle this strictly. But even then, Michael's like, oh, we need to have the contingency plan. Maybe we should. But Alex kind of shuts him down. And the reason why is because he was in a circumstance where he let his emotions get the best of him. There was a kid he would meet with. He'd trade, like, chocolate for eggs. And that kid would, reenact, like, stuff from the James Bond movies. And he was killed because simply because he was friends with Alex. Alex was so pissed, him and his friend end up, like, tracking down the guy that was responsible. Was it a Taliban member who was responsible, and got him, but that wasn't enough, and he just wanted to kind of go after everybody. His friend wanted to pull back, but Alex kept being like, no, he let revenge and that need for revenge kind of consume him, and he let his emotions get the best of him, and in the process, he caught the bullet that ended up taking his leg. But also he ended up finding out later on the SEALs were planning on infiltrating and wiping out the group, but Alex's rush in like that made them scatter to the wind, so they weren't all in one place. So it's like, right, like, I lost a lot in that because I let my emotions get the best of me. So he wanted to make sure Michael wouldn't do the same, because for him it's like, I will not lose you. You are the one thing, like, I cannot lose. So Michael, even though at the end he still tried to go for the sword, I was worried that, like, the moment Alex's back was turned, he was going to do it, but luckily Alex was able to stop him from doing it, so they were able to get away with the pod. But it turns out the pod, Max is inside of Jones's body right now, which makes a lot of sense, because that's why Liz was never able to reach Max, because he actually isn't even in there. He's in Jones's body. Like, when he healed him, it's like the moment he healed him, that's when he switched body. Because once again, it's like he's been in there. Once again, it's crazy. Like, I really want to go back and rewatch that scene when after he healed Max and Max woke up. It's like, yeah, it's like, oh, I was like, oh yeah, it's him playing up the whole Max thing when it's actually Jones the entire time. That's still kind of crazy. Like I said, I think they did a really good job of kind of hiding that. But also, he can't do anything to Jones, because, like, besides, like, this being Max's body, it's like, we are psychically connected. So you do anything to me, like, it's just going to backlash on Max. So you don't want to do that, Come on, like, sit down and, like, have the conversation with your dad, But luckily, they were able to get away with the body, so it is a victory. Granted, there's still a lot, up ahead. Like, there's still a lot to kind of deal with. Alex, knows about the Lockhart machine, and he can't tell Michael much about it, but while he's working on it, he's going to give whatever information he can to him. Because the last thing they need is, like, an actual alien, like, strolling up to Deep Sky. That's going to be a whole thing in itself, but at the very least, like I said, it's like, for the first time, it feels like they're on the winning side of things. How that whole Kyle thing is going to play out is definitely going to be interesting too. Maybe the moment they get actually get Max back, maybe they'll be able to heal Kyle from his circumstance. Maybe not. But I also appreciate it. Like, a lot of family bonding happened in this episode too, because like Rosa and Liz are, it's like, right, they ended up deepening their bond because Liz's perspective on things, she's like, right, like I was so narrow-minded and like so focused on thinking I had the answers, but it's like, right, we actually make a really good team together. And you have like Maria and Isabel, because I'm sure that was also hard for Isabel too, because like for Maria having one perspective on Patricia, but it's also like that's not just her family, that was also Isabel's family as well. So like, but that's also the thing of like they bonded, that's what families form. Like that's so beautiful. Like that the family of hers has extended beyond just Michael and Max. It's also included Maria and just, and I even love like the celebration. Well, Gregory calls her. It's like, go ahead and, he's been very patient and he's been there for you and everything. So like, I'm interested to see where that situation goes between the two of them. Hopefully, like, it has a happy ending and doesn't turn tragic. But Isabel with Liz and everything, it's like, right, let's just take this small victory that we have. And it's like, I'm glad that you're staying in Roswell. And she's like, and saying the same thing to Isabel. It's like, once again, just to see where they are after everything, like, where they were in the past to where they are now. It's actually really neat. Like I said, it was just a very uplifting moment because you see like Michael kissing Alex. So it's like, right, things are good on that front. Like I said, Maria and Gregory, but Maria and Isabel, but Isabel and Rosa. And that's Rosa and Liz and Liz. And it's like, this was a nice episode. Like I said, it felt good. It felt like, this felt like a nice victory, but it's just the beginning. It's like, let's just enjoy this moment, and then I'm going to go do what I always do, and that's save Max 7. So I thought that was a nice way to end the episode of not like, oh man, what's going to happen next? Like, I think they did a nice job ending it like that, where you feel like they're winning, and not like on the somewhat losing side for once or something like that. So I just thought that was really interesting. So. But really, that's all I want to talk about. I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.